Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Martine, and if you are new here, I do videos on Vedic astrology mainly, but also with some tropical insights, and I focus on both relationship and natal astrology. And if you like this video and you would like to hear more content from me, please like, subscribe, hit the notifications bell to see when I will post a new video. And also, if you're interested in a personal consultation, I do consultations on a wide variety of topics. Please check out the video description. I will leave my contact information there. Thank you. So today's video is going to be again on a topic that has been requested a lot of times, I think, in the past several months at least, and namely it is on Venus conjunct Rahu, aka the north node of the moon, as it is known in tropical astrology. And in Synastry, how does it manifest in Synastry, meaning between two people's individual charts? So one person's Rahu conjunct the other person's Venus. Before I get into it, I am going to link some connected videos in the description, so I do recommend that you also watch those, especially the video that I made on Rahu in Synastry, the Rahu dominant relationships, which is particularly relevant to this topic. However, I will be repeating some key themes from this video also. So what do I want to say about this? First of all, what is Venus? Okay, so let me start with the beginning. Venus is about sensuality, it is about wealth, it also represents actual material assets, it represents, cash flow as well, it represents basically your money, your wealth. It also represents everything that we enjoy through the fine senses: hedonism, pleasure, beauty, love, affection, romance, the way we express love, and also the way we like to receive love. Okay, basically our definition of love. I'm talking about Venus according to the position by sign, house, nakshatra, etc. All the different variables that you have to look at with regard to Venus's placement in the natal chart. We're talking about natal charts for now. Okay, so this is what Venus stands for. And Rahu represents, or the north node of the moon, as it is known by tropical astrologers, it represents what we want to achieve in this life. And, not just what we want to achieve, it does represent something that we yearn for very strongly, especially on the material plane. But it also represents things that we haven't experienced in past lives, okay? So it represents an area where we are outside of our comfort zone, especially in the first, let's say, 30 to 40 years of life, and especially if we do not have, especially if we have more conjunctions to the south node or Ketu in our natal charts, rather than conjunctions involving Rahu. Why? Because then we will be more attached to our status quo, and we will be more attached to our past life experiences, okay? So in this case, for some people, the feeling of being way outside of our comfort zone is particularly connected with the placement of Rahu. Okay. So that being said, however, Rahu also represents something that we really covet very strongly, to the point where we might even, Rahu basically represents that point where almost anyone will go for fake it till you make it, because they will want something so strongly that they're willing to pretend that they're already there, even though on the inside, they don't really feel comfortable with the image they are portraying, so to speak. So for instance, let's say, for example, a person who has Rahu in the 9th house could try really hard to portray themselves as a person who is worldly and adventurous and broad-minded and, knowledgeable, especially with respect to the loftier levels of intelligence in this world. So things to do with philosophy, religion, etc. But they may not actually feel that way inside. Inside, they may actually feel more connected to the third house rather than the ninth house, which is, the Ketu placement. However, people may actually see this person as very knowledgeable in ninth house matters simply because they're so good at portraying themselves to be already there. So bearing these things in mind, when you have Venus conjunct Rahu in a relationship, what this show, well, it can go in a number of ways. And like I mentioned particularly in that video that I made on the Rahu themed relationship, it can manifest in the sense that it creates this very strong attraction, but it also creates a fear, especially on the part of the Rahu person. So the Rahu person will feel, on the one hand, mesmerized by the Venus person. They will feel drawn to the Venus person like a moth to the flame. But at the same time, they can feel that they're being pulled outside of their comfort zone. And especially if the Rahu person in this equation has more conjunctions to their south node in their chart, they will feel really uncomfortable around the Venus person, even though there could simultaneously be a very strong attraction there. So with this in mind, even though it creates a really strong attraction, sometimes, in fact, a lot of the times, as far as I have noticed, this relationship does not really go smoothly because sometimes it actually creates a relationship where you have back and forth interaction. So I've actually seen this, for instance, with couples who they could be together for a few years, then they'll break up, and then they'll get back together again, or they'll have like this on and off thing for several times. And it's usually, when you see this, it's usually the Rahu person that is the one who is most ambivalent about the relationship. And again, especially like I mentioned at the beginning, especially when the Rahu person has a lot more Ketu conjunctions in his or her chart. However, so it does create a very strong attraction. So this is one side of the interaction. Okay. Another side to take into account is that this could also show a pretty shallow form of attraction. Again, especially on the Rahu person's side. Why? Because again, Rahu is about what we yearn for. It's what we covet in this life. It's basically what we came to experience here. But the Venus person is already there, so to speak. And not only is the Venus person already there, but it is already there with respect to the Venusian sides of life, if that makes sense. So Venus, once again, is a materialistic planet, just like Rahu. So actually, these two together, especially in a natal chart, can be very helpful for things like fame and popularity and being a good artist, for instance. But in romance, it gets a little bit more complicated. And so anyway, I digress. So basically, yes, because Venus is a materialistic sign, so it represents that, the person, let's say a person has Venus in Leo, right? They already own that Leo energy, right? So they are all about glamour, and for them, it comes naturally. They express themselves romantically and passionately like Leo. And, and then they have that glamour, the ability to at least, actually not just the ability to show, but actually they are actually there, they're in that energy. And from a material point of view, they have all the material side of Leo down, as so to speak. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay. So like, they're really enjoying that environment, and they're owning it. Like Venus, again, being ruling Taurus and Libra, it actually rules ownership. So, and possessiveness, that's another thing. So the Rahu person, who has a person with Rahu in Leo, is going to feel very drawn, because they want to experience that glamour, the self-love that the Venus and Leo person has, etc. This is just an example when Venus is in Leo. So they will feel drawn to the Venus person mainly on a material plane, if that makes sense. Because in this case, so in any case, whatever planet Rahu touches, to some extent can show this materialistic desire of like, I want to have what this other person has. But depending on the planet, it's different things, right? And with this respect, it could be that feeling where especially the Venus person might feel that the Rahu person is really interested in them only for material reasons. Or sometimes it could, like, the Venus person might feel, oh, this person only likes me because, I'm arm candy, for instance, or for Venusian things, if that makes sense. So the Venus person will be wanted for their beauty, maybe for their wealth, for their sensuality, for their glamour, for whatever, depending on the Venus placement. Like I said, it could be a number of things. But basically, whatever it is, because Venus is a material kind of energy, the Venus person could feel that the Rahu person only wants them for material things, if that makes sense. This is something that I've noticed, again, through doing readings over the years. And this is another aspect. So far, two aspects. The final aspect, though, which is the most positive and the most, traditional, according to Vedic astrology, is that this is actually a really good aspect in Synastry. It is seen as really positive regardless of regardless of gender, right? Because if you've seen the other videos that I've made on Rahu conjunct different planets in Synastry, I mentioned what it's like when the man is the Rahu and when the woman is the Rahu, and so on. In this situation, it doesn't really matter so much, although according to the text, the traditional text, the gender doesn't really matter. However, what I have noticed is that it's usually the woman who is the Venus and the man who is the Rahu. Because, and again, this kind of makes sense when you take into account the second facet of the relationship that I have mentioned, which is that the Venus person is desired for their sensuality, their beauty, their glamour. So oftentimes I have seen it where the woman is the Venus and the man is the Rahu, and the man is kind of become another thing, right? This is the fourth facet. I'm going to mention it in a bit. Okay. But the third facet of this, the third potential layer of how this relationship could play out is that it can bring material wealth. Okay, so the traditional interpretation is that the longer the two people are together, as with any other Rahu to planet conjunction, Rahu amplifies the meaning of that planet. So the longer the two people are together, the more the more loving the Venus person is, the more feminine the Venus person is. Together, they can build a higher level of material abundance and wealth. They could also, of course, work together on creative projects and all this stuff. So there are different interpretations, but basically it's a positive aspect according to traditional astrology, because all of the Venus qualities are amplified over time. And of course, it's usually the Venus person, the person who actually has the Venus in this relationship, that will keep giving these, whose Venusian qualities will be amplified through this relationship. So again, this is another point that actually leads me to think that it's usually more common when the woman is the Venus, right? Because the longer they are together, the more attractive, the more seductive she is, the more Venus she is. And in traditional, not necessarily traditional, but like in heterosexual relationships, let's put it like that, right? It's usually the woman who is expected to be the more beautiful, the more receptive, the more sensuous, the more, glamorous and all that. Okay. So this is the third facet. The fourth facet that I wanted to mention, and that I've also noticed over time, is that this can also create obsessions, because, like I also mentioned in other videos, Rahu, and in this video in the beginning, Rahu represents things that we covet very strongly. Okay, so in some way, I've seen this aspect in Synastry play out almost similarly to Pluto conjunct Venus or trine Venus. Actually more like Pluto to Venus hard aspect, when this is a negative expression of this aspect. Of course, again, you would have to look at what other planets are involved, which sign does it take place in, what is going on in each person's chart, to see whether it's going to be a predominantly negative expression of this aspect or a predominantly positive expression. But this is another unfortunate, this is a more unfortunate facet of this relationship, is that it could breed obsessions, okay, especially on the part of the Rahu person. The Rahu person will start to idealize the Venus person, because the Rahu person, you know, is really infatuated. Of course, he's literally hungry for the Venus person, because remember about going back to the legend. I'm not going to go through the legend and everything. I'm gonna link all the related videos that I made on Rahu and stuff in the video description, so you can check out those videos if you want to get more in depth with respect to the legend and what Rahu means in depth in our psyche and all that. But yeah, it can breed obsessions, definitely. This can also explain the on and off feeling to some extent as well, is that, you know, it's like they're together for a while, but then maybe the Rahu person starts to tone down, or the Venus person pushes the Rahu person away, but because they're so strongly attracted, they may come together again once they have already broken up. And yeah, pretty much, I mean, these are I'm pretty sure that I covered all the things that I've noticed. I haven't really made like a script for this video or anything like that. But yeah, this is an aspect that you see it a lot in infatuations, but you don't see it a lot in actual relationships. Funny enough, if you were to ask me, I mean, based on empirical evidence and experience and all that, I have seen Venus conjunct Ketu more often in romantic relationships than Venus conjunct Rahu. And unfortunately, with Venus conjunct Rahu, they rarely last. Again, for probably some of the previously mentioned, especially the first two facets that I mentioned in the beginning of this video. And I have looked for examples of famous people, and the only example that I could find was Rachel Weisz and Darren Aronofsky, where she is the Venus, but it's an interesting case because he has a Venus conjunct Rahu natally, and his Venus-Rahu conjunction is conjunct her Venus. However, it does fit the bill of what I mentioned, what I have noticed and what I have also mentioned previously in this video, that it's usually the man who's the Rahu and the woman who's the Venus. And in this case, actually, they also collaborated artistically. So she was also, I think, some kind of a muse there, whether it was consciously or unconsciously. But unfortunately, their relationship did not last, even though I think they have a child together. But yeah, it didn't last. So whether it was just because of this aspect, of course, I cannot say. I haven't looked in depth at their synastry and relationship, and I think I'm pretty sure that his time of birth is not known, or her time of birth is not known. Because I think I tried to look at their synastry more in depth a while ago. In any case, I have seen this as an example of a famous couple. Okay, so I thought I would mention that as well. And yeah, so far, this is what I've noticed. If I come up with new observations, of course, I will make an updated version of this interpretation. But this has been what I've noticed so far. So Once again, I hope you have enjoyed it, and if you have, please like, please subscribe, please hit the notifications bell to see when I will post a new video, and also if you're interested in a personal consultation, I do consultations on a wide variety of topics. Please check out the video description. I will leave my contact information there. Thank you.